Thank you, Javon. I'm COLWYN ABRAMS with tonight's regional news. We begin with news coming out of Ecuador. Ecuador's government has declared a state of emergency after protesters opposed a fuel price hike that disrupted transportation nationwide. President Lenin Moreno said he imposed the measure to ensure citizen security and avoid chaos. Protesters were angered by Moreno's decision to end the 40-year-old subsidies for fuel, which he said was no longer affordable. Diesel and petrol prices are expected to more than double. The fuel subsidies cost the government $1.3 billion. On Thursday, protesters and the transport sector led a national strike. Taxi, bus, and truck drivers blocked roads and bridges in the capital city Quito and the city of Guayaquil, bringing transport to a standstill. Some protesters clashed with police, who fired tear gas and dispersed crowds. Interior Minister Maria Paula Romo said 19 people have been arrested. Some protesters burned tires and threw objects at armored police bands, drawing criticism from Mr. Moreno. The president, who took office in 2017, said he would not allow protesters to impose chaos. Under the emergency measures, Mr. Moreno's government can restrict freedom and deploy the armed forces to maintain order. The elimination of the fuel subsidies introduced in the 1970s are part of Mr. Moreno's plan to shore up Ecuador's flagging economy and ease its debt burden. We now turn our attention to Trinidad and Tobago. The Law Association of the Twin Islands state, Trinidad and Tobago, has filed its lawsuit against Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley over his decision to reject its investigation into misconduct allegations leveled against embattled Chief Justice Ivor Archie. The association's legal team filed its judicial review application in the High Court Registry at the Hall of Justice in Port of Spain Thursday afternoon. The case was randomly assigned to Justice Vishist Kokram, but a date for the hearing of the application for leave to pursue the case was not immediately set. Based on the usual timeline for processing such cases, it is likely to come up for hearing next week. It is unlikely that the association would be denied leave, as the threshold for doing so is low, with Kokram having to decide whether it had presented a valid claim with a reasonable prospect of success. In the lawsuit, the association is seeking a series of declarations over Rowley's handling of the report, which recommended that he exercise his discretion under Section 137 of the Constitution to advise the President to investigate the allegations by commencing impeachment proceedings against Archie. The declarations include that Rowley's decision was illegal, irrational, unreasonable, and was made in bad faith. And finally, top UN nations' health officials have called on the world to rally around the Bahamas as the country continues to emerge from the devastation caused by Hurricane Dorian 1 month ago. Tedros Adhanom, Director General of the World Health Organization, made the appeal on Tuesday following a visit to the Bahamas. Hurricane Dorian struck on September 1, hitting the islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama. Overall, the UN said 75,000 people have been affected and around 1,500 are still living in shelters. 65 people were killed in the storm and about 600 are still missing. The World Health Organization's chief's visit included stops to the 2 affected islands, where most households and other infrastructure were completely destroyed. The hurricane dealt a substantial blow to the health sector, destroying 5 clinics across both islands and interrupting electrical and water supplies, the UN said. It said the Pan American Health Organization, which serves as the WHO's regional office for the Americas, is the only UN agency with a physical presence in the Bahamas. PAHO WHO deployed 20 staff there and have coordinated the mobilization of 5 international emergency medical teams for the response. Last Friday, the Bahamas Prime Minister Herbert Minnis told the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly debate that Hurricane Dorian, one of the most destructive Atlantic storms ever recorded, was a generational tragedy. Minnis urged his fellow world leaders to treat the climate crisis as the greatest challenge to the planet. And that is the end of today's regional news. Back to you, Javon.